Welcome back to the Upper Tier Podcast, the football podcast we bring you each and every week on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Head over to YouTube, you know the drill. Joining me tonight from, I suppose tonight we have to say from the Chelsea Roar, in Kelly. How are we doing, in?
That's right. Soon to be back, Chelsea Roar. Soon to be back. We're working on the background. Don't worry.
Absolutely.
Very well, thanks.
Good,
Very
good.
well. Looking forward to this one.
Yeah, we said we'd bring you on. We're doing a series of these midterm report cards, as we call them. 7 games into the league, 2 games into the Champions League. Said we'd have you on to discuss all things Chelsea and get your thoughts on the season so far. I know from the WhatsApp groups and stuff like that, you've had some positive thoughts, but you've also had some concerns. So it'll be interesting to get your thoughts on it tonight.
Small concerns just
Yeah,
before anyone
small
thinks I'm about
concerns.
to rant.
Oh no, it's no problem. We love those rants.
Yeah.
Anyway, overall, before we get into the detail, overall thoughts so far into the season.
Listen, 3 words. Top 4, actually. Top of the table. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Champions of Europe, top of the table. It's not time for panic. We all get carried away, as you well know. There's plenty of lads on this particular network that like to go mad and be reactionary after games, myself included. But I mean, look, we're top of the table, you know, ahead of 2 of the best teams in the world in Liverpool and Man City. So, and a team that has, in my opinion, the best player in the world in Ronaldo. So, you know, it's time for calm.
Did you just say the best player in the world, Ronaldo, currently?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. we'll explore that. I'm sure.
Maybe of all time. Maybe of all time.
Yeah,
all
maybe
right.
of all time. I wouldn't
I'll
say
give you.
currently now.
I'll give you Salah. I'll give you Salah.
Thank you, sir.
Actually, on current form, maybe Timo, but we'll get to that.
If form starts from last Sunday or Saturday.
Telling you.
Let's get into some of the results. So we'll start with August. 3-0 win against Palace. Not really a problem. The 2-0 win against Arsenal, I think, was a given at the time. Arsenal were in a very bad place anyway.
Debut for re-debut for Lukaku.
Yeah, and then the 1-1 against ourselves at Anfield, which was really a game of 2 halves and a decision, really. But a definite display in the second half of how to defend from Chelsea, and had a couple of chances on the break as well. And we sort of flattered to deceive, really, in terms of our approach was repeatable and didn't shake it up really to try and create something.
I would say in that game as well, and you probably agree with me being the football man that you are, I think Chelsea have brought back that bar maybe 2 games in the season, which 2 out of the amount that we've played so far midterm isn't bad really. But finally had that kind of old, that Chelsea DNA, that Chelsea culture of like, it felt like Liverpool almost told themselves like, we're not going to be able to break this wall down. Like, do you know what I mean? It was kind of like a mental warfare. That it was kind of like, and that's nothing against Liverpool or anything like that. It was just the way. I mean, I still think Chelsea have the best defense on the planet at the moment. You know what I mean? I just think the way Tuchel sets his tactics up and the way he has the 3 at the back that morph into almost a 4 at times, and how the wing backs become midfielders, it's almost seamless. So I think with that game, it was very, very interesting. And I suppose it was a small victory for us at Anfield. When you think you're at the getting your wing back sent off, you're thinking, shit, just try and keep the score as low as possible in the second half. We'd be lucky. But I think that the way that team defended was probably one of the best defensive displays, you might agree, that I think we've seen in recent times. And as you say, some probably had a couple of the better chances in the second half on the break, which is to be expected with, with the pace that you have with some of those players. But yeah, that was a highlight up until that point that showed me, right, it's a 1-1. And listen, arguably the greatest manager of all time, Sir Alex Ferguson, always said, didn't he, win your home games and, just don't lose your away games. So, I mean, drawing 1-1 at Anfield is nothing to be sniffed at, let alone, with 10 men. So that was that was a great game. And it wasn't like Liverpool didn't try. It was just, as you say, just one of those things, one of those days.
Yeah, it was just a one-dimensional approach from us, and we couldn't figure out how to change it up to try and draw you out and stuff like that. But, yeah, definitely a very good result there, and definitely laid down a kind of a marker in terms of the defensive roles that we were going to see going forward.
Yeah.
We moved into September then, 3-0 against Villa, which I thought was a very, very good performance. Now, I expected more from Villa, but certainly shut out. The 1-0 against Zenit kind of didn't really tell the story of the game, and on the face of it, looks like, okay, you get your 3 points, but it's not that kind of dominant display starting out in the Champions League as the holders.
Yeah, it was. I mean, look, we had a million chances, and they kind of done the same to us, caught us on the break a couple of times. Probably underestimated them a little bit, I might say. The Russians love coming to play Chelsea as well, because obviously it's synonymous. You know what I mean? And yeah, look, Zenit are a good, strong team. But like I say, that's why you pay the 100 million for Big Rom up front to, you know, to score those goals and decisive moments, and that's exactly what he done. Because it's not in any way, shape, or form an easy group, as we'll get on to later. But yeah, I mean, I was happy with the result, but you know, I don't think the performance was bad. He mixed it up a little bit, brought some other players into the fold as well. So yeah, good.
Kind of a professional performance.
That's probably the best way to describe it.
Then you went on. Spurs beat them 3-0 at White Hart Lane again.
Standard.
Yeah.
3 point lane. 3 point lane for us.
3 point lane. Yeah. Went through on penalties in the Carabao Cup against Villa.
Great game. Yeah. Got to see some of the peripheral players as well come in, some of the younger guys. Saul had a bit of a better game in this game than he did in his debut game against Villa. Got to see, this is the game really where you got to see Loftus-Cheek come back into the fold, and you know, the story from there goes on for that boy. Got to see obviously Timo, you know, he kind of got off the mark as well. And yeah, had a very good game actually, playing as the leading line, the kind of the main centre forward. So you can see the work that's been done with him in the background. And then just a thrilling kind of a finale to the game. Great unstoppable goal from Villa. I mean, no keeper in the world. You could have put Alisson, Mendy and Edouard in there and they wouldn't have fucking scored, you know. Eduardo, it was just a cracker. And then a great penalty shootout then as well. It seems like every penalty shootout these days is just great, doesn't it? It's like, what the fuck? It's like it's like FIFA 94.
It depends on what team you follow now. There'll be a team up the road from us now wouldn't be too happy on penalty shootouts. But
this is fair. This is fair, yeah.
The next 3 games I want to talk about are interesting, starting with the Man City game. It's fair to say there was a bit of a drop off. And you pinpointed to me before a couple of things that kind of led to that, that kind of gave City their way in the game. And they had a number of opportunities, but took their goal. What was your thoughts on that game?
Well, look, I mean, we can all look at goal, and we're guilty of it as football fans, and going, oh well, that was a lucky moment or whatever. And you know, it wasn't like they dominated possession. As you know, Pep probably would have taken a 0-0 and that and just been happy. In fact, he probably would have taken a 2-0 loss and been happy that he had 89% possession. That's just a little knock on Pep. But no, I mean, look, we set our stalls out. I know some people were reactionary, saying we were playing the way Conte played with them a few years previous. It wasn't that bad. But the problem was with our midfield, because I think Timo Werner looked probably the most lively of all of our players on the pitch the whole day. I know you like to kind of have a little bit of a joke with Timo Werner every now and then, but even after the game, you were saying Timo really. I agreed with that, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he really impressed you. His running was great. His movement was fantastic, and I think Lukaku had an off day, but I think also upon watching it again, Lukaku had an off day because he was never really brought into the game from the midfield players. The three that were playing in the midfield with Kante, Jorginho, and Kovacic, they just weren't at the races. It was sidewards, backwards passing.
Mm.
Alonso, who had a great start to the season up to that point, kind of reverted to old kind of self and kind of just wasn't chasing back. I think the injury to Reece James was pivotal. I think him going off was absolutely detrimental to that game. Anyone that watched it up until that point, he was giving him and Grealish were having a really good battle, but Aspi had a, as Aspi has had most players this season, had him in his back pocket. When he was trying to come in, and I think when he had to put Aspi out on the right, as a wing back, look, we've said this before. Azpilicueta, I mean, he is one of the greats of the Premier League. I know you're a big fan. That chap will run for days, and he's a proper leader. Like, he's a proper, he's just morphed into a British style player, hasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you're asking to go up against Grealish, and then obviously Christensen, it took him a while to get into the game. He had to get in quick. I think Thiago Silva is just like a fine wine. That lad gets better every game. Rudiger, I know Darren, for some reason, probably the only lad in the world that doesn't agree that Rudiger's like one of the best centre backs in the game. I don't know, but I suppose he sees the kind of moments of madness that he has. But I think it was just one of those games where we showed too much respect to City when really we shouldn't have, because I think City were fearing us going into that, especially under Tuchel. He'd lost twice, beat them at the Etihad last year, and then obviously beat them in the final. I think we showed them too much respect, and really what we didn't utilise was that partnership with Lukaku and Werner.
And look, it was a massive opportunity for you as well to open up a 6-point gap, I think, at the time, wasn't it?
It really was. So it was a little bit disappointing, and then I was a little bit disappointed in the second half then with Tuchel that he didn't, he didn't change it. Because I was looking at certain midfield components there. I mean, it was calling out for someone like a Loftus-Cheek to just go direct. A player that will, none of this backwards, sideways passing needlessly. You could have taken him off. I know Kante come off in the game. He wasn't 100% fit, but Loftus-Cheek needed to come on. And then when he did, he was our best player in the game. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I thought Chilwell should have come on earlier as well. You were calling out for a bit more of that pace. Could have even brought Hudson-Odoi on a little bit earlier for an Azpilicueta just to be a bit more direct. But look, a 1-0 to the champions of England. It's not devastating, but at the same time, I was a little bit, I was looking at the tactics a little bit and saying, right, you got this one wrong. But I mean, he came out and said it himself that he got it wrong. And I like when a manager comes out and says that,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Really, really important that they recognise it.
Yeah.
So then we moved on to the Champions League match week 2, and it was Juventus versus Chelsea in Turin, and the old lady, of course.
You'll be surprised how many messages I get. It's not often we play, but you'll be surprised how many messages I get when Chelsea are playing Juventus, and they're like, "Jesus Christ, this must be a tough one for you."
Yeah.
And it generally
this is a Chelsea hat on and a Del Piero jersey, you see, just to mix it up a bit.
It's one of those things though, but you know yourself, your heart always goes with one. It's like when you have two favorite boxers. You know what I mean? And you're like, I don't mind who wins as long as it's a good fight. But then you notice yourself by round 2 or round 3, you're like, I know, I'm pulling for this guy. You know what I mean? You can't help it. It's just the natural ebb and flow of the way things go. But no, there's never a doubt with that with Chelsea. I mean, I was fucking calling Juventus all sorts of names during the match. Like, so yeah, it's a second team for a reason. But no, look, we done in the first kind of 45 minutes, we done to them what City done to us. We controlled the game, controlled the tempo, but it was like the players didn't listen to one thing that Tuchel said, especially the midfield. It was just sideways, backwards, sideways, backwards. And the thing about a team like Juventus is, and any top Italian team, they love defending. Like they celebrate a good block or a good defensive piece of play, like some teams celebrate a goal.
Yeah.
And when you bring the big boy Cellini on, then like with fucking 10 minutes to go, and he's like, like just because he got a header, you're like, lads, we're fucked here. Do you know what I mean? Like we're fucked here. He has these lads in his back pocket. Like, it was weird. Like, again, no service to Lukaku, really. He did get a couple of moments later on in the game, which was a bit worrying that he kind of snatched at them. And I sensed a little bit of frustration there, which I understand can happen. But when you pay 100 million for the player, you expect them to be, players like Ronaldo and Messi and even Salah now, they get that one moment and you expect it in. But look, I'm not going to be too harsh on the boy either. But
He's had a great start already.
Oh yeah, exactly. I'm definitely not gonna criticize him. It's just small things to point out. But I was thinking it can only get better from here. The one thing I will say is, like, Juventus, those Italian teams, they love that. They get that early goal, you're fucked. Do you know what I mean? You could have Juventus in the final against Liverpool, City, and Chelsea. And if they go 1-0 up against all three teams, forget about it. It's just they
and they're so clever. They won't let you draw them out, even when you change it up. They just have a role, and each man has that 20 yards of space, and he defends that, and that's his job. And they all do it across the park. Like,
oh, I'd say Bonucci and Cellini have a pocket full of coins, and if they see one lad step up a little bit, it's into the back of the head, like, get back in line, son. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But no, it was a good game. This is where I suppose some of the tactics again. He got it wrong, because when I seen Ross Barkley come on as the fourth sub instead of Timo Werner, you're kind of saying to yourself, this lad's lost the plot already.
I remember you messaging me, all right.
I was like, Timo's had probably his best game, like, under Tuchel against City, and you're bringing Ross fucking Barkley on. Now, we will talk about Ross Barkley later, because whatever Tuchel's at doing to this lad, in terms of, even, I don't know whether you've seen his latest Instagram post and everything, and the Rocky Balboa fucking even Drago training he's doing at the moment. It's quite impressive. But to the layman, when you don't know this and you're sitting there as a fan going, what? Yeah. What's Barkley? So it was a bit of a head scratcher. But again, losing away to Juventus 1-0, it's not the end of the world in the group stage. It's just one of those things that you hope you go into the Southampton game and something changes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
we'll move on into the Southampton game. This was a game that I was really intrigued by, because Southampton had been doing well. They'd been taking points off the bigger teams and stuff like
City,
that.
Yeah.
So, like, I expected them to be kind of dogged in their approach, and in some respects they were. But the game did turn on a moment of madness from James Ward-Prowse, without a shadow of a doubt. Not to say that Chelsea weren't dominant in the game at times as well, but I just think that moment where Ward-Prowse went into midfield that way and did that, you're just looking at him going, what are you doing?
Well, you're looking at a referee that had already fucked himself up as well, and then realised that I have to give Chelsea something here. Otherwise, I've got a lot of explaining to do. Do you know what I mean? Because, I mean, the first team over Werner disallowed goal. I mean, that poor chap, 16 disallowed goals since he's been at Chelsea. Now, imagine even a fraction of them are in. We're having a different conversation about this lad, and he's a roaring success. You know what I mean? But, I mean, this was a perfect goal. 18 seconds in play. Like, every single pundit that knows anything about football, and you'll see some of these idiot former referees coming out and defending their colleagues, but you're like, but then they don't defend if it's a certain team. Do you know what I mean? Well, he may have got that wrong, but as soon as it comes to Chelsea, look, I shared it. I was like, listen, don't tell me there's no agenda, because it's quite clear there fucking is. Like, we've been dealing with it for 20 years now, maybe even more. But I mean, you know who was up in the VAR box, don't you? Yeah. Don't even need to mention that prune's name, but that's what he is, a big glass of prune juice. That's all he's good for, is flushing out shite. So that's the only rant you're getting today, lads. No, I mean, look, that's just madness. I mean, that's a clear goal for Timo, and it should be given. Do you know what I mean? There's no way you can allow 18 seconds to play. And plus, it wasn't even a foul in the first place. It was minimal contact. Do you know what I mean? That's what Ferdinand was even saying. There was nothing in it. And this is what the rule supposedly changed, was that you could let play on, and none of these little silly fouls be given. So anyway, this happens. But I mean, look, it could have been 4. Could have been. I mean, even with Ward-Prowse on, it was a different Chelsea, to be honest with you. And again, you could have flipped the coin. for who was man of the match between Timo Werner and Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I thought Loftus-Cheek was absolutely phenomenal again. I heard Thomas Tuchel likening him. He reminds him a lot of Michael Ballack. I'd never really thought of that one. And then I thought, shit, that actually is a good comparison. He's almost kind of he's almost got that kind of Pogba-esque thing about him when you see Pogba just playing carefree, doesn't he?
Yeah, like when he's in free flow motion, yeah. Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? When he's not thinking and he's just enjoying the game. I just think Loftus-Cheek is a special player, and the fact that he's only 25 and he's had to overcoming so much already, I couldn't be happier. I mean, that will be if he finishes out this season the way I hope he does. This will be one of the biggest success stories of a player coming back from all the injuries, and the story of his life will be incredible considering he had that massive growth spurt at a young age, and that's what caused a lot of injuries, and they said it was going to ruin his career.
A tough loan season at Fulham.
And a tough loan season, yeah. Not played in the right way, kind of playing with a team that was never really going to do anything for him anyway. I'm sure you will agree.
Yeah.
But then we have to talk about that boy Ross Barkley again. He comes on and hits a fucking Cesc Fabregas pass to Cesar Azpilicueta, and the boy Timo comes in, boom, like a proper striker, and you can see how much it means to him. Unbelievable. And there's the resilience. That's what I was looking for. You're looking at 1-1 and you're going, right, what can we do now? Ben Chilwell having a bit of a moment, obviously giving away the penalty, but then getting the goal as well. Mason Mount, I think, coming on was a big difference. I think he was what we've been missing in the last few games too.
You'd probably agree, rightly so, that he had to be left out for a couple of games because his form had dipped.
Oh, without a shadow of
a doubt. This is Tuchel really managing his squad properly.
Yeah. You've seen Klopp do it. You've seen Pep do it. All the great managers do it. You know what I mean? When Mount is on form, he's kind of like, obviously not the same type of player, but in the sense that he is pivotal to our press, much like Bobby Firmino and Liverpool were kind of dominating teams. As I say, in a very different way because he's more of a free role and he floats around, but good Lord, he goes after everything. So it's, it's a super, super bounce back win to put us top of the table. And as I said, there's a lot of people kind of going, shit, Timo looks like he might have something about him now, There's one thing you look at Timo and you go, the boy's head just doesn't drop, does it? You have to.
Yeah, he sticks with it, doesn't he? And you have to praise him for that. I mean, another player, his confidence would have been shot totally.
We see it with Torres, didn't we? Seen it with Torres and Morata and Shevchenko. Like those kind of, it was almost like they were shying away from those moments. Like they wanted to be involved in the play, but they'd rather give the assist.
Yeah.
Whereas this lad is still like, all right, come on, fuck you. Yeah,
he still wants to take the responsibility.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a big season for him, and I think the way Tuchel's managed him has been absolutely perfect.
Yeah, definitely an interesting few months ahead anyway for him, and I suppose with Lukaku, a slight dip in form. I mean, it gives him maybe that potential opportunity,
Well, I still think you're going to see the two of them together a lot more, like we did against Southampton and like we did in against City, and even in training. He's been talking about that a lot, that he thinks the two of them can work together now. And now you can see in his latest interviews, he's putting the pressure on Kai Havertz and Hakim Ziyech now. But he's never putting pressure on them as well. He goes, maybe it's my fault a little bit too, but maybe their confidence is dipped. He's like, come on, lad, step up to the plate. It's just great. Yeah. The Germans just know what to say, don't they?
Yeah, and you have an abundance of riches there as well. So it's unbelievable.
It's always a scary looking bench, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Honourable mention. Yeah. Trevoh Chalobah.
Yeah.
My God. I mean, talk about just something out of nowhere. Something that obviously, and again, credit to obviously the kid himself, but credit to Tuchel. Good Lord, he's obviously spotted that one little gem in training and went in pre-season and went, "You're staying with me, kid." You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah, and a boy who's not scared to throw it in there either. Like he's proper, you know. And remember, he's trying to break into a situation that's already death row. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like he's trying to.
yeah,
This guy's trying to break into an unbreaking in position. You know, really, when you
yeah.
think about who's there. You
And
know,
now he's kind of potentially keeping Christensen out of a job. You know what I mean? It's
who's
like
been outstanding.
amazing.
Yeah. Let's push on and look ahead hypothetically to the next, say, 8 to 10 games anyway. Back on the 16th of October with a tough away tie, I would say, to Brentford, who've
Yeah,
been the real surprise package this year. Thomas Frank doing an outstanding job, Ivan Toney there, and Ben Beumbo, and a couple of other sprinkling of players in there who are doing really, really well. It's a tough place to go. Now,
yeah.
again, and I said it when Liverpool went there as well, I wouldn't expect you to have a problem there. But the way they play football, I wouldn't be surprised either if it ended up a draw. But a tough one to come back to, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think there's slight differences with the way Chelsea and Liverpool and City all play, even though they play kind of that fancy kind of football. I think Liverpool kind of go with that direct. You know, you used to have those fast wingers. I used to wind you up saying it was long ball football, but obviously it's not. It's just they have that style of play where like the goalie can hit such beautiful passes that it's direct and you're already putting teams on the back foot, so you're killing their press. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think Brentford would probably find it probably a little bit harder to play with us purely from the standpoint that sorry, I'm just charging up the beast here. Purely from the standpoint that our midfield is so intricate and holds onto the ball so well that I think they wouldn't have a problem keeping the possession against the likes of Brentford. I think, and I don't think you look at Chelsea and see set pieces or anything like that as a weakness. In terms of when we're defending set pieces, you know what I mean? I think we're pretty well drilled, and I think you're going to be looking at someone like a Lukaku and a Werner kind of chomping at the bit as well to get at it. So I think it's more a case of, even though Brentford, and that's again, it's no disrespect to Brentford, but I think it's more of a case that they're probably just playing Chelsea at the wrong time, that they'll be coming back ready to fucking just ready to bait the bollocks out of whoever they play. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that Man City one really hurts a lot of the players. Big time.
Yeah, no, I'd agree.
Yeah.
Then you're rounding out the rest of the month. Doesn't seem too bad. I mean, I'd expect you like to be very professional against Malmo. I don't see that being a problem in the Champions League.
Norwich then as well.
Smash Norwich, and then it's really the Saudis versus the Russians by the sounds of things.
We'll smash them. They haven't got anyone yet.
No. Apparently they're going to win the league and the Champions League within 18 months. Should be interesting.
Yes, listen, we've all played FIFA career mode. You know what I mean? It's a fun story while it lasts. But come on, these are different times. It's not like when you had Abramovich come in, or it takes a while. And don't forget, it's the same even with Man City. Like they had, a couple of owners. They had that weird Chinese fella, or was he Taiwan or whatever it was he bought. I remember when Sven was managing him, and then Mark Hughes was managing them. You know what I mean? So like they were already building a couple of big players, and they were building a bit of an identity. So it wasn't just Rome built in a day type of thing. So Newcastle think they're just gonna. I mean, they'll probably get a lot of players in. Like we only talked about this, didn't we? Didn't I only say this to you a few weeks ago? I said I have a feeling that one of those takeovers is going to happen. And do you know what? Bring it on, though. I love it.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
I'm excited for it, and I like Newcastle. And do you know what? Their fans deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
they're just not going to win nothing against us anyway. That's what.
Yeah. But it brings an interesting dynamic in terms of the top four, because I'm sure the likes of Arsenal and Tottenham and I would probably say United. I'd put United in that bucket.
Did you say top four and Arsenal and Tottenham even in the same bracket?
No, but I mean, in terms of trying to get back in there, and now Newcastle are going to come along with this huge investment, and they're going to be potentially another one vying for that, And we know these investments with these Saudis and all, they're very competitive even within themselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was reading today, this guy is worth something like 400 billion or something like that. So you know the money's just going to be thrown at it.
And they won't even be allowed to look into where they got this money from because they'll be threatened. Like someone's head will be threatened. Okay.
So long as they don't start paying their own sponsorship, it's all good.
Yeah, I like that new kit though that I seen doing the rounds on social media. But
it's a long one. Yeah, absolutely. Moving into November, then obviously the return leg at Malmo, which I don't see being a problem.
I think they'll be two pivotal ties for us as well. Yeah, because you know what I mean. You need those to be 6-pointers just to keep the pressure on the other two.
I don't see any problem in the Champions League at all.
No,
because I think even the home leg against Juventus, I think will be a different match.
Yeah, me too.
Burnley, I don't see being a problem. Leicester, they're kind of in transition. Leicester a little bit, aren't they? They've had a poor start to the season.
Yeah.
So again, I don't see that being a problem. But again, going to play against Leicester, anything can happen, and Rodgers is still trying to figure out what his 11 is.
Yeah.
Then, as we said, the return leg, the home leg against Juventus, I think it'll be a different game. You'll want to put on a show that night, definitely. That could be the game that decides the top of the group, basically, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then Man United visit on the 28th of November. What's your thoughts on that one?
Not worried, honestly.
No. Is this the one where you add an extra nail to the lid of the coffin from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's reign?
Could very well be. I just think when I look at that run of fixtures, it's quite exciting because there's huge potential there to put some distance in, because I know you boys and City have a much trickier, a couple of games between that. I think we have one of the easier runs there. Nothing's ever easy in the Premier League, but so I don't like saying that and jinxing it. But one of a run that you would expect kind of almost maximum points out of it. I mean, Newcastle away will be tricky because even with the shittest Newcastle teams, we have a dreadful record at St. James's Park. So I'd almost be happy with a draw out of that one. But I think the rest of them we should be beaten. I look at United, and I'm not being funny, I don't see what kind of just with us flying on all cylinders on our day and them on their day. I don't think there's a comparison. No offense, and I'm not doing it in a cocky way. But
the only thing that I would highlight is the fact that when Ollie is so close to the door, he just finds some way of getting a result somehow.
I don't think we're going to lose to fucking another Manchester team at home to Stamford Bridge this season. That's all I'll say.
Hopefully not, anyway. And then you round out November with an away trip to Watford, which I would imagine is business as usual. They've had an okay start to the season. The boys' star has been decent, but that was a shock result the other day against Leeds, where they lost 1-0. Leeds keep a clean sheet. They haven't kept a clean sheet nearly all season. Watford were scoring goals, but dried up pretty quick. So I'd expect you to get.
Unless they can get Elton John on the pitch to fucking distract the players with his piano playing, I don't really see. Anything but a Chelsea win there.
No. So it looks like you've a decent run of games coming up and an opportunity to put distance. Especially if you look at your first 7 games in the league, that was a tough run of games. You played us, you played Spurs, you played Arsenal, you played Villa, you played City. That's. I mean, we spoke about the fixtures on a previous episode before the season started, and we said that between yourselves and City, we had a reasonably tough run of fixtures there where we were all playing each other, whereas United had gotten away with it, and now they have a tough run of 8 fixtures coming up now. That's like death row, really.
And that's it. And we came through it, and like I said at the start, top of the table. So you can't really ask for much more than that, can you?
No, absolutely not. What's your sort of overall sort of concerns, observations at the moment in terms of? I mean, is there anything you see there that would concern you? Is there anything you see there you'd like to see happen?
Listen, not really. I mean, the couple of concerns I had were kind of ironed out with the Southampton game. I'd like to see. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't see Ziyech cutting it in the Premier League. Certainly not at Chelsea. I just think when it matters, he's too lightweight. He's too headless chicken for me. You watched him against Juventus. I think Kai Havertz, I know he's not in his best form at the moment, but look, that kid has all the potential in the world, and you know that Tuchel's just nurturing him. I think a big plus, as I said, has been Timo's resurgence. Even though I'm not saying he's scored a million goals, obviously, but he's definitely
on the way.
Do you know what? You have a bit more confidence in him now
Mm.
when he's in at those chances than you did last year, where he's still so dangerous. He's such a dangerous player in how he moves defenders around. I mean, just look at the goal in the Champions League final. He's always a
And
danger.
and a great run of games coming up from to potentially put some goals on the board.
Exactly. And I mean, if you get a run of games of him now where he gets confidence in him, then you know what I mean? It's a different conversation. The resurgence of Loftus Cheek, as I said, looking at Ross Barkley, looking after himself is very interesting. No manager has ever seemed to be able to get his head out of the fucking clouds because he always starts pretty well, does decent, and then he's obviously a big fan of the drink and going out and partying and whatnot, which is fair enough. A lot of these young lads do that, you know what I mean? But I think it's do or die time for Ross Barkley, really, isn't it? Because he's what, 26, 27? I mean, he's still young enough now.
He's had a couple of loan stints as well that haven't been amazing. I mean, he's had a couple of moments in those loan stints, but nothing.
But then he goes back on the sauce then with the mates, and you know, it's not saying he's a dipso or anything, but he's like one of those old school English style players. Loves the lifestyle. But
Tuchel's one of those managers as well. He'd lay that on the line to him and say, "You better decide what you want. You want to be a professional footballer here at Chelsea, or do you want to be enjoying the sauce with the boys potentially?" You know what I mean?
Yeah,
he'd lay that down.
And that's it. And apparently, Tuchel and his team are really impressed with him in training, and that's why because don't forget, he didn't have a squad number up until a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So obviously he's doing something right. And as I said, his recent Instagram post, he was basically doing Ivan Drago fucking training. So you know, it's interesting to see there. And
Roman sent him back with Zenit for a few weeks, did he, to run those snowy mountains?
I'm telling you, man. Just don't take a blood test.
Yeah.
But
what do you make in terms of say squad management? I mean, would you like to see a more settled 11 with occasional options dropped in, or are you happy for him to kind of tinker at times?
I don't mind him tinkering at times, and the reason I'm saying that is because obviously, you know, two players that you would expect to play when everyone's fully fit would be Pulisic and Kante. Now, Pulisic had a freak injury on international duty, but this seems to be the story of Pulisic's career. Like he misses a lot of the start of the season, but then comes back and fucking absolutely whoops in the second part. You know what I mean?
Massive 6 months at the end, yeah, absolutely.
And so it's like, yeah, it's one of those things with Pulisic, but Kante obviously had an injury there. You kind of you expect him to come back and get his place, but even at that, expecting him to come back and get his place when you see how good Ruben Loftus-Cheek is playing, and you know,
there we go.
Yeah, so like expecting him to come back, Kante to come back and kind of get his place ahead of, you know, a Ruben Loftus-Cheek, for example, who's just in outstanding form, is probably a tough task. So I mean, he's gonna have to alternate those midfield players. I mean, he's a shoe in for that position, isn't he? It just depends on what's around him. Kovacic, I think, even though there's been a couple of games where he's not done his best, again, 95% of his season has been great, you know. So I think two nailed on starters are Kovacic and Jorginho. And I think that third spot, which at the moment looks like Ruben has kind of got it at the minute. So yeah, of course you want to see a little bit of solidity with the front. You don't mind. I mean, I'd be happy to see how it works with, you know, Timo and Lukaku, and then you play either one of Mount or one of Koi. And if you let those two battle it out a little bit, that's kind of interesting too, isn't it? Because you know that in the future it's going to be those two playing together. They're going to be your Lampard and your Ballack. You know what I mean? So, um,
It's
yeah,
a it's a tough job for him, isn't it, to keep everyone happy?
it is. You see, the back line's pretty much settled. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Back line is pretty much settled. You've got bar maybe that right hand side because you've got Christensen, Azpilicueta, and now Trevor Chalobah vying for that third kind of centre back spot, because you know Reece James, when he's fit, is playing in that wing back role because he's just too good.
Yeah.
It all depends on whether Rudiger signs that contract or not. I think whether he does or he doesn't, I don't think it's going to be a huge worry to Chelsea. They're not going to break the bank either to sign him for at 28 years old with a player who's got that many injuries. So I think if the likes of Bayern or Real come in and offer him something stupid like 300, 400 grand a week, which is some of the rumours going around, I don't think Chelsea, if they say, like, look, we're going to give you 200 grand, take it or leave it, I don't think they'll be, don't get me wrong, it'd be missed, but don't forget, we haven't had a full year of Rudiger playing great for us. Like, we've had a tail end to last season and now the start of this season. So I'm not ready to hit the panic button on him yet, but I think the back line and the goalies are pretty much sorted. I mean, Jesus Christ, even Kepa, since anytime he's played this season's been unreal. You know what I mean?
Under serious pressure with Mendy. I mean, Mendy's outstanding.
That's it. And anytime he's been asked to come in and perform, good Lord, he has. So it's just, I suppose you can tinker with the front line a little bit when you have players that can just switch it on, though, can't you? It's just, I'd like to see him get a settled midfield now, and only tinker around for a little bit. Because don't forget, we're probably in the most games of any team in the Premier League this season, when you think with the whole World Club Championship and all that stuff as well. So
you want your team to get into that synergy and that rhythm, don't you? And then it's business week in, week out, week in, week out. You get that rhythm, and then occasionally we have to drop a guy in here or there. But definitely.
But I mean, look, Tuchel's bounced back from criticism anytime that it's been questioned. You know what I mean? So.
Well, the fact that he took it on the chin himself as well, and he said it himself, is a huge thing as well. Because if you can assess and you can accept your own faults, that's the pathway to greatness, really, isn't it? In terms of improving.
And a lot of managers talk about changing things, and then the next week they persevere with what they've already done, and then tell you that they tweaked a little thing here or there, and you're going, "Well, I didn't see that." Yeah. Whereas he's actually puts his money where his mouth is, and he's got that old Mourinho style and Klopp style, where he's not afraid to haul a player off after 45 minutes at halftime and completely change the fucking dynamic. We've seen it so many times. So yeah, like, there's no issues there. Like,
in terms of the top four race, and in terms of the race to the title, I know we're only 7 games in, so it's early days, but a pattern is developing. And it's probably a pattern that a lot of people wouldn't have thought would develop that way. I know with Liverpool, the talk that we focused on, renewing contracts rather than signing players and all that kind of thing, meant that we were sort of put in that sort of 4th position in this race, if you like. But what's your assessment so far in terms of, it's going to come down to yourselves, City, us, and United in some form fashion, isn't it? How do you see it playing out if you were trying to look ahead, like Mystic Mac or something?
I'll be honest with you, I really do fancy us this year to win it. And the reason being is that, listen, I think on their best day, there's nothing between ourselves and City. We all have different qualities and strengths that one team can do better than the other. But if you ask any Joe Soap on the street who just likes to watch a game of football, they'll be the 3 teams that he tells you he enjoys watching. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think our counter attack can probably be some of the best you'll see in the world, but also I think our control of a game as well can be brilliant. It's very different to Liverpool style and very different to City style. It's weird, like the 3 teams, they all have their own unique styles, but there's a lot of similarities, isn't there? It's possession based, it's attacking football. I just think that with Tuchel, I think he's like any good German, like Klopp. The year he's won it, defense was like fucking first and imperative. Do you know what I mean? You're not breaching us, you're not breaking the walls, and you are starting to get that back now, obviously with the return of Virgil. But I think Tuchel's probably, and I think you probably agree with me there with Tuchel. Like you don't see him. You wouldn't bet against him keeping a clean sheet, but you also wouldn't bet against Chelsea, you know, or bet, I suppose, for an opposition team to put more than one past them. Do you know what I mean? You don't really see them conceding multiple goals. It's like that one, and then they're able to kind of just steady the ship. And I think,
They've a unique way, haven't they, of like taking a lead and killing the tempo of the comeback and holding
yeah,
onto the ball and sort of that staunch sort of way of seeing a game out. And you might
yeah,
look at the scoreline and think, let's say it's the Brentford game, and you might beat them 1-0. And people would look at that game and go, you only beat them 1-0. It must have been a tough old game or something like that. But you'll find when you delve into that game, Chelsea continually controlled the game and the compass of it and stuff like that, Whereas
yeah.
Brentford would be working very hard to be in that game, just hypothetically,
They take the will. They kind of kill your willpower. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, as I said, when they're on form, like Jorginho and Kovacic, they're two of the best possession keepers of a football. Do you know what I mean? They just, even in tight situations, there's always someone there. And then you've got a Thiago Silva, like I said, or a Rudiger. All their backline can pass, all of them. You know what I mean? So they're all good ballers on top of being good defenders. And I think that's what it is. But I think the reason I fancy us purely is that I think there's a lot more to come from Lukaku anyway, that's for sure. And Timo looks like he's about to, really, really help the team, whether it be in goals or helping other, players get goals. I just think our squad depth is probably what puts us favourite. You know what I mean? Like, I can't see where all of City's goals are coming from. Like, they beat us, we flattered to deceive. Do you know what I mean? Look what Paris done to them.
Yeah, I suppose not getting the Kane deal over the line or not getting a bona fide striker in.
Yeah,
will probably be where they could probably fall a little bit short.
Yeah.
Whereas you guys went out and you said, yeah, there's 97 million or whatever it is. He's the guy that we wanted. You nailed your colours to him. You got your player. And I know they signed Grealish as well, who's a fantastic player and a good signing and stuff like that and all. But
they have a team full of midfielders, though, you know what I mean? And it's like, even though they're good, and they are good, don't get me wrong, I just, like, I see, you can see Salah getting 40 goals this season, you know what I mean? You can see Mane getting up in the 20s in all competitions. Like, I can't see, because I haven't seen it, I can't see Grealish getting that. Can't see Ferran Torres getting that. I can't see Gabriel Jesus getting that. So their goals are going to be dispersed a lot more. They're still going to be there, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I see Lukaku getting the 20, 30 goals in all competitions. You wouldn't be surprised if Werner went on a run and seen him getting 20 in all competitions. But you can see the likes of Loftus-Cheek and all them getting your 10 goals here and there. And then you'll see Pulisic coming back and him getting his goals from angles, Mount, Havertz. I just think their squad depth is so good that there's a ready-made replacement for every for every position, basically. And they're going to go out and buy again in January, obviously, defender. Probably get your man Koundé this time at a much cheaper deal. So yeah, I just fancy us for that reason. But I don't, in any way, shape, or form, I don't want people to kind of think I'm getting over cocky here, because I don't think it's going to be.
No, you're making a valid case for why.
Yeah.
Like, you've put your case out there why you're stating this, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's not like you're finger in the air type of stuff, you
Oh,
laid
yeah.
down a marker, you're top of the table after 7 games,
and I think
through a tough run of games.
That's all it is. Do you know what I mean? I just think it's purely the squad depth and the style of play. Do you know what I mean? Like, you could make a case, like, if you were just going to go, oh well, we play better football, but then you can have an argument, because Liverpool can say, well, no, we play better football, or City can say, no, we play better football. I just think, like I said, I think the way Tuchel is, I think they're the best defensive unit on their day.
I suppose when you look at it, when it comes to those clutch moments in those big games, do you want Lukaku with that ball, or do you want Jesus with that ball? And that's really how I summarize it. It really comes down to just those clutch moments in those big
That's it.
games.
That's it. And
And
that's it. Or do you want Havertz
mm,
if Lukaku's not going to do it? Or do you want Pulisic if he's not going to do it?
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? So
mm,
you've got 2 or 3 players that aren't afraid of that big moment. I mean, just look at last year. Pulisic absolutely destroyed Real Madrid. Like, people are forgetting Pulisic. He's going to be like a new signing when he comes back.
mm,
Um, and I think that's what Liverpool and Chelsea have, just more than City. I think City have a team of absolute fucking quality players.
mm.
I just, you know what I mean? It's, poor old Phil Foden. Like, you're not expecting him to get all your goals in the big clutch moments, as you mentioned.
And what a
Um,
player though! What a player!
oh, fantastic! But
Incredible
that's what
player.
I'm saying. Like, he's like Mason Mount in that sense. They're all of the same category. They have Mason. I mean, England have a Mason Mount, Phil Foden, fucking Jack Grealish.
Mm,
I mean, Jesus Christ! Now they have Tammy Abraham called back up, who's absolutely banging the goals in Serie A as well. Like, they have a serious squad, and like, Liverpool. By the way, shout out, good to see the boy Elliot back
yeah,
back on the
back on the
bike as
bike.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
so
Yeah.
that's good to see.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, I just that's why I'm making the case. Like, and I know people like Dino and Darren and all that will appreciate that case. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm giving the reasons for it.
mm,
Um, and nothing bar like, well, 2 games that you can't win them all, but 2 games that you expect. Like, if I saw what I saw with Antonio Conte and Mourinho, like, who just wouldn't change it, and they had their virtual 11 was there on paper, and they wouldn't change it, and there was favoritism, and there was like loyalty to a fault kind of thing, and expecting players in bad form to play their way out of bad
mm.
form, I'd be kind of like, oh, I don't know about this. But like, I think we have that kind of manager now that is kind of going, well, no, fuck this. Do you know what I mean? And I think you'd probably agree as a Liverpool fan, he's probably even more so like that than Klopp. Do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
Klopp kind of sometimes has that loyalty to a fault. He's not willing to just, throw a chance to like a Chalobah
yeah,
and go, look, it's a
yeah,
big game, go and fucking do it. So
yeah.
I think there's a
I
trust.
suppose there's the confidence and the quality of what you have there as well. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
It's
Yeah, you
different.
can't just get the next big thing
Yeah,
and say, go and show me. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
but
Um,
yeah, no, I think I do. I think Chelsea fans are excited this year, and I think rightly so. Um, it is going to be an amazing season. I know, as I said, I don't when I'm speaking with confidence there, that's not me saying we're going to win it by a landslide of like, 10 points or something like that. I think it's going to come down to the wire. It could come down to fucking it could come down to goal difference this year, for fuck's sake. So
I
yeah.
truly believe it's going to come down to the games against each other in the top four.
Yeah.
That's what's going
Yeah.
to decide it this year. I think the rest, will take care of itself. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with that confidence. I mean, you're the European champions. You should be confident. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you're not confident, then why aren't you? If you weren't, So
Yeah. Why
yeah,
you supporting the team? Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, if there's ever a time to be confident, now's the time to be confident. Fantastic squad, good start to the season, albeit 1 or 2 iffy performances, which is
Yeah.
okay. I mean, out of 9 games, if you have 2 iffy performances, is that all that bad in terms of form? I don't think so. With the run of
Especially
games
when
you've
it's
got.
against Man City and Juventus.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, my friend, a pleasure coming on for Chelsea's midterm report. And I look forward. We'll have to do the full term after Christmas or something like that, which will be interesting when things will be really
Yeah.
sorted out. But yeah, top of the league at the moment, looking good. Should qualify into the next stage of the Champions League, no problem as well. So everything's good with Tuchel at the moment.
And I'll just finish as well by saying, let's stop these international breaks, please. Yeah.
Yeah. Or at least let's stop flying players all around the globe and let's sort of try and centralize it or something during these times.
Let's just ban international football altogether. Come on, we're over it. Like, just call the players up randomly for a training camp before these tournaments. You know what I mean? Fuck
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Well, until next time, it's Dynamo Podcast Network on YouTube for all the videos. Spotify, Podbean, iTunes, wherever you pick up audio versions of the show, you will find us there. If you want to hit us up, you'll get us on the upper tier and on Facebook and on Instagram. And if you want to hit us up on Twitter, it's at _upper_tier. And if you're Chelsea fans out there and you're on the network, the Chelsea Roar will be back real soon with a bang, just getting warmed up in the season. Till next time, my friend. a pleasure.
As always.